on this series of following Paul and follow him as he follows Christ and his example in our life. We're going to do one will be in Acts 27. Acts 27. All right, I've always put myself in the situation to be humbled here, but who can remember something about Paul's life that you have learned to follow, or you need to follow, or you have God has spoken to you about following and all in these lessons? This is number 6, by the way. Who has something following Paul, something in Paul's life that you've learned? Yes?
Is humility.
Is what?
Humility.
Humility. All right, good. Is humility. Definitely have that. And biblical humility. As you said last week, it's not self-depreciating. That's not humility. It's, yes?
Cheerfully endure.
Cheerfully endured. Yes. Good.
He suffered without quitting.
He suffered without quitting. All right. Okay.
He had strong work ethic.
Okay. Strong work ethic. Good. All these things are good. So these are important to learn from Paul. And today, I'm not talking about one characteristic of him, but just something just about his life. Is today is number 6. It's Paul in chaotic times. Paul in chaotic times. And Acts chapter 27 is where I'm going to be. Acts 27. And I'm going to read verses 12 through 14 to start off with. And it says, because the haven was not commodious to winter in, the more part advised to depart thence also, if by any means they might attain Phoenice, and there to winter, which is the haven of Crete, that lieth toward the southwest and northwest. And when the south wind blew softly, supposing they had obtained their purpose, losing thence they sailed close to Crete. And not long after there arose against it a tempestuous wind called Euroclydon. All right, let's go ahead and start there. Father, thank you for the chance to teach your word, to learn your word. As Lord, you always teach me so much, and I pray that we would learn more about what we need in our lives, and that your Spirit would speak. And Father, we have a great example of a human. Paul certainly was that, with frailties and failures and everything else, Lord, and that's what he is. And yet, Lord, you used him in mighty ways, and he gives a good example to follow you. And I pray that we would learn some things about his life and help us in a mighty way, Father, and do great works. And Lord, we pray for your Spirit to speak now and touch our hearts, touch our minds, touch our intellect, where we start thinking about we need this, Father. I pray to help us in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, some people are chaotic people. I know people like that, and they seem to thrive on chaos, or they like chaos. Or sometimes there's people who just think it's fun to not plan and just have things be crazy and chaotic, and they kind of thrive in that. I know good, godly people who do that. Other people have chaos in their life because of the lifestyle choices they make, and they bring chaos on their life. So I know people who do the right thing and end up in chaos because life can throw you into chaos. And I've had many times in my own life where I was doing, what God wanted me to do, and ended up my schedule got blown up, and where I thought I was going to be, I didn't end up, and this disaster happened, and this situation happened, and sometimes I thought it was going to be a calm day, and I end up in the hospital visiting someone who's passing, and anything in this world's chaotic. Sometimes you think you're going to have a nice, calm, normal day, you got it all planned out, and you get a car wreck on the way to work. And that's just life. And chaos happens. And and plus, there's a lot of things we can't control. Terrorist acts and health issues and a lot of things that just happen. And a lot of times, chaos happens. And so we're going to face chaos. We're going to face, no matter how well you organize and plan. And by the way, praying about in your life and living a godly life, and you get planted. We talked about that, and that brings stability. We understand that, but you'll find out that people bring chaos because people are unstable. Okay, but the good thing about this in this lesson is Paul in chaos is not unstable, and he's not chaotic. Everything around him was chaotic, but he was not chaotic. And one of the things I've learned in life to say and to think is a lack of planning on your part does not necessarily constitute an emergency on my part. Okay, and it might. Okay, if you didn't plan and you fell asleep at the wheel and drove into the river and I'm there and I can pull you out of the river. Okay, it might, but it might not. And so we should not be people who are all the time unstable and chaotic. But life might be chaotic for you, and you'll be surprised how 2 or 3 phone calls in a day change your whole day. And somebody else does something dumb, and you're the person who cares for them, and now your life has changed. And so I want you to learn what Paul did in chaos, because he goes through a bunch of chaos. And I'm going to go all the way back to chapter 20 and the chaos that Paul was in, the Apostle Paul in his life, in chapter 20. He is serving the Lord. He's getting ready to go back and to Jerusalem. He's leaving Ephesus, and he tells them, I don't know what's going to happen to me, but he says this in verse 22. And now behold, I go bound in the Spirit unto Jerusalem, not knowing the things that shall befall me there, save the Holy Ghost witnesses in every city, saying that bonds and afflictions abide me. So Paul says here, he says, I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know this, that afflictions and bonds, which means prison, jail, are with me. And so he says, you know what, I know I don't know everything's going to happen, but I do know I'm going to be in jail at some point again, and that I'm going to have afflictions. The devil's going to fight me, and bad things are going to happen, and so I know that's going to happen in my life, and so that's part of what the thing there. So he knew that chaos was coming in his life, and he knew that that was just the will of God. In Acts chapter 21, we find him in worshiping God in Jerusalem, and the chaos starts in verse 27. And when 7 days were almost ended, the Jews which were in Asia, when they saw him in the temple, stirred up all the people, and laid hands on him, crying out, Men of Israel, help! This is the man that teaches men everywhere against the people, and the law, and this place, and further brought Greeks also into the temple, and had polluted this holy place. Most of that wasn't true at all. He's against the people. Okay, come on. And he's against the temple, and certainly none of those things were true. But there he was worshiping the temple, actually, and they said, this is Paul. And a bunch of people railed against him and said, this guy's trying to destroy everything, they started lying against him, and boom, here comes a mob, and they arrest him. And he's taken. He's about to be killed. They just decided to go ahead and just kill him. And again, he just came to the temple to worship and finish up his holy day there. That's all he was doing. But now he's got a mob dragging him along, and now they're saying, let's kill him. Okay, that's a chaotic day. Okay, that's a chaotic day. And chapter 21, and you find verse 30. It says, And all the city was moved, and the people ran together and took Paul and drew him out of the temple, and forthwith the doors were shut. So the whole city stirred up. There's a riot started, and the whole city turned to chaos. And by the way, if you've never seen a mob, I have multiple times in Chicago. If you've never seen a mob, they get one mind, and they can do anything. And it's just like, it's kind of like a magnet around metal. Everything gets drawn to it, hooks to it. And it gets crazy. And this whole mob grabs Paul and says, let's kill him. Let's just go ahead and kill him. And the whole city is now moved against him. And verse 31, And as they're about to kill him, tidings came to the chief captain of the band that all Jerusalem was in an uproar. It's so crazy that all of a sudden the soldiers and the Roman soldiers are all over Jerusalem. They hear there's a huge riot going on. So they run in there to see what the riot is, and they find out they're about to kill this guy. And they ran down and saw Paul, and verse 22, and they were beating Paul when the soldiers got there. They're beating Paul. Okay? And they grabbed Paul and said, okay, hold on, whoa, what is going on? We have rules, we have laws here. What is going on? And so they pulled Paul away. Paul now, by this time, had already been beaten by the mob. Okay? I had this happen on a bus one time in Chicago when we were bringing kids to church from the worst projects in Chicago. And we had a mob of kids, and they turned into a mob for the donuts we had. All the crazy things. And we had a big bag of donuts, and they decided that they wanted our donuts. They wanted to make sure they got. And they were day-old donuts from Dunkin' Donuts, but we had a big clear bag. That was our mistake. They could see all the donuts in there, and they were just riled up, and something happened, and they clicked. And I'm telling you, unless you've been in government housing high-rise projects in Chicago in the 90s, you can't understand this. That they turned into animals, not people, and they just decided to get the donuts. They dove on me in a mob, and I mean, just started attacking me, punching me, clawing my eyes, hitting me, kicking me, clawing me to get these donuts. I look in the back of the bus, and I see Pastor Roman White. I see him disappear beneath the teenagers in the back. There he just disappeared, and then it was just on. And it was survival of the fittest, and I'm still here. And I did find out you can use a small kid as a club on bigger kids. I did find that out, and I thought, man, when a mob attacks like that, it is chaos, and it's chaos, and if you only knew the things that I've seen and been through, you would not believe it. And the mob is there, and so they pull him out. They drag him along. They go and they're taking him. They're going to basically take him and put him in a castle prison just to keep him safe till they can figure out who the guy is, why they're beating him, and they can stop the mob because they don't want the city to go into chaos. Because when mobs start, they kill the one person, but then they start burning everything else, okay, and destroying everything else. And so they just wanted to stop the riot to get the guy out of there. So they're drawing Paul out, and he was being carried by the soldiers, verse 35. And when he came upon the stairs, so it was that he was born of the soldiers for the violence of the people. And the multitude of the people followed away after, crying away with him, verse 36. And so Paul is being led up into the castle. They're taking him up, and next to the temple was a castle, a Roman castle. And they're taking him up the stairs in the castle, and Paul says, Paul stops the centurion guard who's doing that, and he says, can I speak to you? And he says, you speak Greek? And he says, yeah. He says, I'm a Roman citizen. He says, you're a Roman citizen? I thought you were some Egyptian king come here to fight against a temple or something. He says, no. See, Satan had been working the city, and the chaos was there, and got everybody to believe that Paul was some wicked, evil person who's trying to destroy all the things of God and all these things, and so of course Jesus said that if they hate me, they'll hate you also, and they'll persecute you. And so Paul says, no, I'm a Roman citizen, and I'm not against, I'm not doing what they're saying. And he said, can I talk to the people right now? We're at the top of the stairs here. That's what he has to do. So Bob's following, kill him! And Paul says, hey, can I talk to them? And so Paul stands top of the stairs, and he preaches a sermon to them. Okay? He has that presence of mind. And in verse 40, when he had given him license, Paul stood on the stairs and beckoned to the hand of the people, and there was made a great silence. He spake unto them in the Hebrew tongue, because they're the Jewish folks, and begins preaching to the Jewish people. And so he preaches a sermon to them and talks about, hey, I'm not rejecting God. We believe in the God of the Bible and the law, and Jesus came and fulfilled the law. And he's died to save us. And he gives his testimony, preaches all of Acts chapter 22. His sermon, but it doesn't go so well. They didn't accept him, and they end up pulling him into the jail, and they take him. And so then, same day, he goes to Sanhedrin. Well, the Sanhedrin was, so what you did, the Romans ruled everything, but they let the local people govern small things. So they took him to the Sanhedrin, which is the Jewish leaders. And he was tried before them, and they said, guilty. And so they pull him out of there, and Paul says, well, look, I'm a Roman. Yeah, they can't condemn me totally. I'm a Roman citizen. If I was just Jewish, I'd be dead right now, but I am not. I'm a Roman citizen. By the way, Jesus wasn't a Roman citizen. He couldn't appeal. He wouldn't have, but Paul was. And so Paul says, no, let's get out of here. And he preaches now to the Sanhedrin. And chapter 23 is him preaching to the Sanhedrin. Okay? And by the way, he's already beaten by a mob. But he's preaching to these different groups as he does that. He is eventually taken to a low-level leader named Felix. Then he's taken to a governor called Festus after time. And then he goes to King Agrippa. In all these passages, I guess, 23 and verse 34. And when the governor had read the letter and asked what province he was, and when he had understood that he was of Sicilia, I will hear thee, said he, when thine accusers are also come. And he commanded him to be kept in Herod's judgment. So Paul's put in prison. He begins this process of going from court case to court case and being tried before the next person says, I don't think he did anything. And they'd say to the Jews, say, look, the guy's not done anything. He's not even doing what you're saying. They'd say, no, away with him. And he'd say, well, okay, well, what do you think, Herod? And he'd go to the next person. So he goes through trial after trial. He gets put in prison. And nobody really knows what to do with him because he's not really guilty of what they said, but they know that there's going to be a riot if they let him go. And so he continues to go on, and he goes from one jail to the next, and from one person trying him to the next. Eventually he goes to King Agrippa, the local king there, and what does he do? Before every single one of these trials, he preaches the gospel. He tells them about his salvation, tells them, look, here's what happened. I was persecuting these people, and then I was persecuting these Christians, and all of a sudden I was walking down the road to Damascus. And he gives his whole testimony, and then he preaches Jesus Christ died and was buried and rose again from the dead. And he spoke to me, and I'm bringing a gospel of love, and we aren't rejecting the Jewish religion at all. We fulfilled it. And Jesus is the fulfillment of the Old Testament and all the prophecies. And he preached again and again, preached the gospel to court after court, to king after governor after leader. And he continues to do this, but he's not let free, and he's put in another jail. And this is what his life is doing. It's just pretty much chaos, no part of him. As he preaches to Agrippa, he says, after the sermon, he says in verse 27, King Agrippa, believest thou the prophets? I know that thou believest. Then Agrippa said unto Paul, almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian. And Paul said, I would to God that not only thou, but also all that hear me this day were both almost, and yet altogether such as I am, except these bonds. I'm still in chains. And when he had thus spoken, the king rose up, and the governor, and Bernice, and all them that were with him. And when they were gone aside, they talked between themselves, saying, this man doth nothing worthy of death or of bonds. Then King Agrippa said unto Festus, this man might have been set at liberty if he had not appealed unto Caesar. That's interesting. He had, in this process, finally said, okay, I want to talk to Caesar. Okay? Now, there's a reason that Paul does that, but he is sent as a prisoner eventually, and to Rome to talk to Caesar, the king of the whole world. I believe he wanted to try to win Caesar to Christ. Okay? But he was already told that he was going to do these things and be brought before all these people. And so he's sent eventually as a prisoner, chapter 27, verse 1. And when it was determined that we should sail to Italy, that's where Rome was, they delivered Paul and certain other prisoners, and one named Julius, a centurion of Augustus' band. So off he's going to go, and he's going to go all the way and preach the gospel. Let me take you back to chapter 22 and just show you a little bit of something he knew about. I'm sorry, verse 23 and verse 11. And this night, the night following, okay, this is way back in the middle of court case after court case, the Lord stood by him and said, be of good cheer, Paul, for thou, as thou hast testified of me in Jerusalem, so must thou also bear witness also at Rome. So Paul knew he was going to Rome. God said, you're going to preach, you're going to witness it. So Paul said, look, you know what Paul did? Paul said, look, the end of all this stuff is I'm going to Rome. So I'm going to preach to everybody, because this is what's going to happen anyway. And preaching to them the gospel is probably not going to want these pagan governors to let me go free, but you know what? I'm going to Rome anyway. So preach the gospel to them. And so off he goes into a boat to go to Rome. And during that, chapter 27, Paul has an inclination that something bad's going to happen on this boat ride. Chapter 27 and verse 8. And hardly passing by, we came to a place which is called the Fair Havens, nigh whereunto was the city of Elasia. Now this is chapter 27, verse 9. And when much time was spent, and when sailing was now dangerous, because the fast was now already past, Paul admonished them and said to them, sirs, I perceive that this voyage will be with hurt and much damage, not only the lading of the ship, but also our lives. So Paul had some kind of inclination something's going to happen there. Maybe the Spirit tapped in his heart a little bit. We're going to see that a little bit later. And he doesn't have clarity on it yet. And we'll get to that tonight in tonight's message about the voice of God. He didn't have clarity yet, but he had an inclination at this point. And so Paul has that. You would think that, okay, I'm out of the jails, I'm out of the mobs, I'm staying on a boat, things will settle down a little bit now. But they weren't about to settle down. There's going to be chaos again. And a lot of chaos because a storm's coming. Troubles and troubles and troubles. Verse 18. And were exceedingly tossed with the tempest. And the next day they lighted the ship, which meant the ship was being thrown around so much they thought it was going to sink. So they threw out they started throwing out the wares. They started throwing out the supplies. They started throwing out things that would weigh on the ship. Valuable stuff. Trading stuff. And they started throwing it out. Verse 21. But after a long absence, Paul stood forth amidst them and said, Sirs, you should have hearkened unto me, and not have loosed from Crete, and to have gained this harm and loss. Eventually the storm gets worse, and they even throw everything off. They throw everything with weight on it. They throw the sails off. They throw the tackle into the ship. They throw all kinds of everything they could, just let the wind just drive them. They were just in a storm. And for 14 days, they're just blown around in a massive storm. Now, it's hard for us to understand that, being on a sailing ship without the Coast Guard, without radios, just on a small boat thrown in a massive storm without any control for 14 days. Okay, but that's what they were done. And Paul is part of the whole thing. They're fasting. They're so desperate for nobody's eating anything. Because they're fasting, saying, some God's got to save us and deliver us from all these things. And then verse, let's see, verse 27. And when the 14th night was come, as they were driven up and down in Adria, about midnight the shipmen deemed that they drew near some country. And in verse 29, and fearing lest it should have fallen upon the rocks, they cast 4 anchors out of the stern and wished for the day. Okay, they said, I just wish the day would come. It's never going to come. It's just been dark and storm, and they just wish that there's been 14 days of this chaos. No sleep, wet, cold, wind, storm the whole time. And Paul's in this. And by the way, Paul the apostle, the man in the will of God, the man getting ready to write a whole bunch of books of scripture, this godly man is in the same storm as everybody else. Okay? Don't listen to prosperity gospel preachers. Don't think you serve God, everything's going to go easy and good. Paul should have been in his lazy chair, retired in his mansion long before this, okay? And he wasn't, okay? And so Paul's in the same chaos, in the same storm. You know, why did this storm happen to Paul? Bible doesn't say. Okay, just happened. Guess what? He lives on earth. Earth has storms. A man that is born of woman is a few days and full of trouble as the sparks fly upward. That's part of life. Okay? My cars break down too. Okay? Now, God might bless things and help, but just understand, you're in a life of chaos. You're in an unstable world. Okay? That's part of life. And that's part of Paul's deal is he proceeded. He told them not to go. They didn't listen to him. You know, well, they didn't listen to me. Then God should protect me. God did protect him, but God let him go through the storm. And guess what? They didn't listen to the Apostle Paul either. So don't get so pouty when people don't listen to you. You know what you do when people don't listen to you when you know you're right? You say, you shouldn't do this. And they go, I'm going to do it anyway. And you know what you do? You go, that's what I do. People don't listen to me. My job is to give advice. I'm not a dictator. You don't want to do what I say? Okay. When you come back to me when it didn't work, what you didn't listen to, I'll help you then. And you cannot listen to my advice then either. Guess what? I don't charge. Okay? I should take deposits on advice. Okay, I'm going to give advice. If you give me $50, if you don't take it, I keep it $50. That's what I should do. And, you know, so Paul went through the storm. And that's it. And he did. Chaos. Finally, Paul said, all right, you know what? Let's eat. Amen? That's always a good thing to do when everything's dark and dreary and miserable. And verse 33, and it says, while the day was coming upon Paul, besought them all to take meat, saying, this day is the 14th day that we have tarried and continued fasting, having taken nothing. Wherefore I pray you, take some meat, for this is for your health. For there shall not an hair from your head, the head of any of you, fall from any of you. And when he had thus spoken, he took bread and gave thanks in the presence of them all. And when he had broken it, he began to eat. Now, just side note, nothing to do with anything. Jesus did the same thing. They took food, they stopped, they blessed it, and they gave thanks for it. So we pray before our food. And so we do that. I want to say, Paul says this is for your health. Understand the Bible's a practical book. Okay? And look, I am Mr. Pragmatic. I'm the most practical person in the world. That's just my nature. Is I just solve problems. That's what I do. And so that's the first thing I see. Look, the first thing before I get into something too spooky, when someone is depressed, one of the first things I do is I just find out about their life, and there's a bunch of physiological things you do to make you depressed. Okay, just understand, just eat too much sugar, you will crash and be emotionally messed up. Okay, you understand if you don't get enough sunlight, vitamin D affects your emotions profoundly. If you don't get enough iron, okay, like you've been eating Cheetos and washing down Coke all day for 3 days because you're depressed. Guess what? You're going to be more depressed because there's biological things that affect you. Almost always when I find someone depressed in their house, almost always they're in a dark house with every curtain closed because the devil isolates you when you're depressed. And you go into a house and every curtain's closed and you're not even getting vitamin D through the sunlight of your window. And it's going to compound the problem. And how many times I walked in and said, where you been? What's going on? And they're sitting there curled up wanting to die and not be miserable. I said, hold on a second. Come here, we're going outside. You need fresh air and sunlight for a minute. Why? Now, I'll get to the spiritual things in a while, but there's just, look, eat. Eat. You got to take care of yourself. Okay, I understand you fast and do that stuff, but look, a lot of things you blame on the devil are blamed on Frito-Lay. Coca-Cola. Okay? And you'll just find that a lot of things it makes the spiritual things a lot easier when you are doing foolish things. You'd be surprised how eating refreshes you and makes you feel better if you eat something decent. And so there they are. And now he says, look, cheer up, let's eat. This is for your health. You're not going to make it any farther if you don't eat something here. And so understand, it's practical stuff does matter. Don't look for the miracle until you've done what you can do. Okay? Do what you can do first. Don't pray for God to supply your needs when you're blowing all your money. Okay? So do not look for miracles. That's tempting God when you could do something. Okay? And that's all free. I have nothing to do with the message. But he had them eat, and he did all that. Everyone else got cheerful, and they told everybody to get cheerful. And when he had spoken, he took bread and broke it, and they began to eat. And verse 36, they were all of good cheer, and they also took some meat. And so they did that. Soon the storm blew them, they're out of control, and blew them into some rocks, and the ship was going to break apart. And Paul said, look, don't get out, you got to stay with the ship, he told them. By this time they began to listen to him. Okay? And he said, you cannot be saved unless you abide at the ship. And so they continue on that in that process. And in verse 42, and the soldiers' counsel, as the ship began to break up, was that they should kill the prisoners and swim out and escape. Here they are. The ship's falling apart. They can do nothing but swim to shore now. And so they say, all right, the soldier says, we got to kill these prisoners because they might escape. Let's just kill them all. Again, this is chaos Paul is in. Everything is, his whole life, everything's going from one storm to the next, one trouble to the next. His life is full of chaos. And now they're saying, okay, you got to kill the prisoners. Paul's thinking, man, could I have had a more glorious end than this? Being stabbed before the soldiers jump out off the sinking boat. I'd like at least let me get killed by a mob. I'm saying, trust Jesus, But that's the end. And one of the prisoners says, no, let's not kill. I don't want to kill Paul. We're gonna keep the prisoners alive. And the centurion, the leader, verse 43, willing to save Paul, kept them from their purpose and said that we can swim to shore. And they did that. So they swim to shore. They're all on shore. And they meet some natives. The natives are taking care of them, show them great kindness of this little island they're on. And Paul is getting wood, making himself useful like good people do. And I don't have to do it. I'm a prisoner. I'll just say, no. Paul was a good person who made himself useful. Remember that? He's not a freeloader. And so Paul is getting, and he went, and he put some wood in the fire, and a snake comes out near the fire and chomps his hand. You thought this is only you. You thought Murphy's Law only applied to you. You know what? It's applying to Paul. And the snake bites him. It's a poisonous snake that kills everybody. So the natives said, he's dead. And they said he must be a murderer because that's why the snake bit him and not somebody else. Which I love that. When bad things happen, people begin to say, well, that's why this happened. It must be judgment. Because they're so perceptive. And the snake bit him, and they all sit and waited for him to die, for the poison snake. But of course, Mark 16 says, if you're preaching the gospel around the world, that snakes can bite you, and you can drink poison, and all these things, and no harm comes to you, and nothing happened. Now, notice Paul was not a snake handler. Okay, that's stupid. Okay, that's tempting God. A snake happened to bite him when he's doing God's work, and so you don't look for poison, but if it happens, God can protect you if He's got a job for you and you're doing His work. Snake bites him, they think, oh, he's going to die. Verse 4, and no doubt this man's a murderer, but he shook out the beast in the fire and felt no harm. You know what they did? They all fell to the ground and said, "You're a god." Boy, it just went from being a murderer to a god in 5 minutes. Do you get it? The Paul's in chaos here. He's just in chaos. In the will of God, serving the Lord. Just trouble, chaos. You know what Paul was through all this? The same. That's the message today. It is, look, my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. Yes, though the angry surges roll over my tempest-driven soul, I am peaceful, for I know. Wildly though the winds may blow, I have an anchor safe and sure. I have chaos all the time. Not chaos of, oh, what am I doing? Just troubles, and I deal with people and problems and troubles, and stuff happens, and I'm busy and around a lot of things and deal with a lot of things, and you know what? I'm about today like I was about last Sunday, like I was on Tuesday, because my joy and my strength and my peace is not determined by things being smooth. But matter of fact, I don't really expect things to be that smooth. Look, my life is people. Okay, that's what my life is. My life is fixing problems with people. People are very good at making profound problems.
Yes, sir.
And then they're really good at taking a profound problem and making it worse. And look, I determined not to let my life turn to chaos, my home turn to chaos. And because I want to be anchored in God, and I'm not perfect at it, but Paul did really good at it. Let's learn some things from him. Oh, by the way, what did they do next? They worship him in verse 6. What's he do in verse 8 and 9? And it came to pass, the father of Publius lay sick with a fever and of a bloody flux, to whom Paul entered in and prayed and laid hands on him and healed him. And when this was done, others also, which had diseases in the island, came and were healed. What did Paul do? He stuck in the islands and just started doing ministry. Why? Because that's about what he was doing when he was in Jerusalem. It's about what he's doing in Ephesus. It's about what he's doing in the boat. Because Paul did the same things in the chaos. That's what he did. And he always did those same things. Number one, Paul did not let the times change him. He did not let the times change him. He preached. He was cheerful. You know, Paul was cheerful throughout all this. In the middle of the storm twice, he stood up and said, "Be of good cheer." In the middle of the storm, not when the storm was over, in the middle of the storm. You know what Jesus did? He walked in the water in the middle of the storm, got in the boat and said, be of good cheer. Later he stilled the storm. He didn't say be of good cheer when the storm was done. He said it in the storm. A Christian with the joy of the Lord and the peace of God can be of good cheer in the storm. You think, I'm going to pray and God will take this storm away and then I'll have peace. That's not biblical peace. In this world, John 16:33, ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I've overcome the world. You're going to have problems and troubles. But you do the same thing. You be peaceful and cheerful in everything. The peace that passes understanding, Philippians 4 says, shall keep your hearts and minds. Not your circumstances. Your circumstances don't keep you peaceful and joyful. The circumstances change. Your health is going to change. Your relationships are going to change. You do not have peace and joy because you have your circumstances all lined up. You have peace and joy because you have a God in heaven who has heaven for you, who loves you, who's never going to leave you, and will give you the strength to handle anything that comes along. And that's what God has. That's what he did. We can look back at chapter 27. He's always cheerful. Verse 25, middle of the storm. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe God that it shall be even as it was told me. And we'll read that verse again a little bit later. John 14, 1 through 3. Let not your heart be troubled. Do you believe in God? Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you, I go to prepare a place for you. Can I tell you, if you end up in the hospital today, or your car you out there and your car does not start, or you get back home and your house is burnt down, nothing changed in heaven. Okay? You'll never get an angel to come down and say, sorry to tell you, but your mansion in heaven did not have a sprinkler system and it burned down. Start earning some more rewards. Look, it's all stable there. Okay, it's all good. You're not going to get, the bank's not going to foreclose on it. Okay? It's all good. God's not panicking in heaven. God never says, uh-oh. Okay? It's all good. Heaven's still stable. That's my hope. That's my joy. My health turned back. Somebody hates me. A loved one passed away. That's all hard and tough and not easy, but understand, nothing changed if your rock is heaven and God. And I'll give you some verses on this and do that. 1 Thessalonians in chapter 5. Verse 16. Rejoice evermore, pray without ceasing, in everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. Hey, always be cheerful. Always rejoice. Philippians 4:4, rejoice in the Lord always. Again I say rejoice. My life verses that I use as my life verses are Psalm 62, 6 through 8. Psalm 62, 6 through 8. He only is my rock and my salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be moved. In God is my salvation and my glory, the rock of my strength, and my refuge is in God. Trust in Him at all times, ye people. Pour out your heart before Him. God is a refuge for us. Don't be moved. Be the same. Be cheerful. Trust in the Lord. I understand there's a time to weep and there's a time to mourn. I understand there's burdens, but your foundation, okay? You have this thing underneath, it's just joy and peace that keeps you. That thing there, around that, your emotions can do this. Okay, there's an anchor. They can only go so far from your joy and peace. Okay, you can be a little happier because they messed up your order and gave you your lunch for free. Okay, here's your joy and peace, and you went a little happier. Your boss gave you a raise, you get a little happier. That's great. It can go up, but with your joy and peace that stabilize you, you can't go that far down. Your emotions, you had a bad day, you found out some bad news, so someone you love, your grandma passed away, and you are weeping, but you're not crashing. When you don't have joy and peace to anchor your soul that you're attached to, you can do this. You can go anywhere. Because you don't have joy and peace stabilizing you. You don't have heaven as your hope. You don't have a Jesus being with you. Be content with such things as you have, for He said, I will never leave nor forsake you. You keep that joy and don't be moved. Number 2, he believed God. Back to Acts, I'm going to hurry. Acts chapter 23 and verse 11. He was told, you're going to make it to Rome. So Paul was so confident in what God had told him, he just let everybody know, hey guys, just to know we're going to make it because God told me we're going to make it. Acts chapter 27 and verse 23. And it says, for there stood by me this night the angel of God, whose I am and whose I serve, saying, fear not, Paul, thou must be brought before Caesar. And lo, God hath given thee all them that sail with thee. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer. For I believe God. I believe God, it shall be even as it was told me. So God said, hey, I'm going to do this thing. And so, boom, he knew it was going to happen. And he was told before he's going to be before kings. And so Paul knew, I'm going to be fine. It's going to be okay. And so Paul was okay because he believed God. Either you believe God or you don't. That's what it comes down to. Either you believe God or you don't. He believed God. Number 3, he kept ministering to others. Look, can I tell you, this is something, people think I'm crazy on this. Can I tell you? I'm not crazy. I've done this for a long time. I don't think you should live your life, whenever a problem comes, curling up in a ball and saying, I can't help anybody now. You know, when you get your mind off yourself, your problems seem a lot smaller. I don't take time off helping people. What about when you're overwhelmed? I say, God, give me the grace. There's times when maybe I'll just take a couple days off, but my life doesn't change drastically. I just need to take care of myself for a while. Look, being self-centered is not going to help you. There's a time when you need to do some healing for a minute. But you know what? Your general lifestyle of going to church, helping people, tithing, praying for the people you love, if that's what you do that. Now, some of your biggest problems in life, the reason you're not happy is because you don't do that. Your mind's on yourself. All you do is start to take care of your own problems. And by the way, people who take care of their own problems only are overwhelmed with their problems. People who take care of other people's problems, God gives them strength to handle their own problems. And their own problems don't bother very much. Okay? You get consumed with your own, you just think about your own problems. You get very, if you get all wrapped up in yourself, you become a very small package. And so you go and you begin to minister to people. And Paul, he could have said, I don't want to do anything. I mean, they beat me. Look how beat up I am. No, I'm going to preach these people in the staircase. Because they need Jesus still. Think Paul was hurting? Sure he's hurting. Those are his people who beat him to a pulp. Okay? You don't take Sundays off church because you're depressed. It's like saying I'm boycotting the hospital because I'm sick. It doesn't make sense. Okay? It doesn't help you. You don't stop loving and treating your family right because you're hurting. You should do, you go and you love your family, be kind to them. Look, I know misery loves company, but it's a very selfish thing to go hurt other people because you're hurting. Well, I've had a bad day. Well, thank you for spreading that disease. I mean, look, it's okay to say, you know what, I had a rough day, I just better go to my room. Can I just go? That's okay. Calm down, and 2 or 3 hours, come back out, and then start ministering again, loving and serving. But Paul didn't change in this shipwreck. What did he do? Crash on an island? Oh man, I thought I was going to preach to the king. Now I'm just laying around here with a bunch of natives. No. So that guy needs healed. This person needs the gospel. Why? Paul's eyes were always lifted up. Paul was not a perpetual person staring in the mirror looking at his needs. He saw needs of people, and he always was working for help people. He wasn't self-centered. And if I thought about other people, I would just get so discouraged, and I would just quit and do this. You underestimate yourself. And the grace of God that will give you strength. Look, how many times have you seen me depressed? Has anybody here ever seen me depressed? Ever? Anybody? You can raise your hand if you've seen me. Okay? Look, how many of you've seen me deal with problems in your life? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you seen me deal with problems in other people's lives? Okay. I'm a happy guy. By the way, what I am right now, I don't change for church. Okay, I'm at church. Hi guys! I don't do that. Okay? Look, my disposition's about the same. I'm a little more bombastic in front of a crowd just because I mumble and look at the ground half the time, and then I'm on mission half the time and don't pay attention to people. When I'm preaching, I'm a little more gregarious, but I'm pretty much my discipline. Why? I'm not unhappy because I bear other people's burdens. And because I'm trying to help people. It's a wonderful thing to see lives in here that have been impacted. And to help people, be a blessing. And it makes you feel good to be a blessing to others. And they're not alone. And, and look not every man in the things of himself, but every man also in the things of others. When you get grounded in Jesus Christ and get a close relationship with Him and begin to serve other people and help other people, you don't have to be moved by everything. But when your life is just about you trying to make yourself happy, the chaos ruins everything. You know what? You're going to have chaos. Things are going to change at work. Things are going to change in your health. Things are going to change in your bank account. Just when you thought you were doing good financially, all of a sudden you get this little notice that your check bounced. And all of a sudden 4 more things bounce. And each time they charge you $35 or something. You're going, oh, just what I needed. I'm out of money, so they charge me money. Great. And stuff happens. You got to have something better than, look, it's sunny outside. I'm happy. You're in Seattle. You're going to be miserable if that's what makes you happy. Okay? But Paul was stable. Through shipwrecks and beatings and mobs and prisons and snakes biting him. It was in chaos, but you know what? He was okay. I'm going to tell you, you only get that from God.
Yes, sir.
It's the only place to get that. And that's why you need to stay close to Him. So you can, through the chaos of life, stay stable. Amen?
Amen.